It's actually quite dangerous when your boss becomes your mentor. At the beginning, it sounds great. But what happens if the best mentoring relationships are reciprocal, where you're both learning from each other? This very, very often happens because 70% of people in the world have imposter syndrome.
Welcome back to another episode of the Being Yourself show, where world's renowned thought leaders and best-selling authors share their wisdom and insight with you so that you can achieve your goals and be a better version of yourself. My name is Ajay Mathur, and my guest today is Ruth Gotian. Ruth is an expert in mentoring and leadership development and is currently contributing to Forbes and Psychology Today. She's also running a podcast called Optimizing Success, and she has been 30 people worldwide to be named to the Thinkers 50 radar list, which is kind of Oscars in management thinking. And she's also semi-finalist for the Forbes 50 under 50 list. But today we will be talking to her about her upcoming book in the US and released book in the UK, which is called Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, which is a brand new book. I've just finished reading it. So we'll be talking a lot about mentorship. Ruth, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to chat with someone across the pond.
Yeah, great. So first of all, I was just reading your bio, and it looks like you had medical background, and then you did some management studies also. What's up with this shit?
What am I doing? So I have my first 2 degrees are in business, and I worked in finance and investment banking early in my career, and then shifted into academia. I had been part of the higher education world since I was 18 years old, and I worked within academic medicine. And I have been there since 1996. And at the age of 43, I went back to school to get my doctorate. I studied adult learning and leadership. And my focus was on extreme high achievers. Why do some people succeed and others falter? And how can the rest of us achieve more? And I have interviewed Nobel Prize winners and astronauts and Olympians and NBA champions. And in my day job, I am embedded within an academic medical center. So that's where those worlds intertwine.
Right. Okay. So before we jump into the mentorship, let's clarify what is the difference between coaching and consulting and mentorship.
Yeah. So I always, when I give these talks on mentoring, I always say there's 4 roles: role model, mentor, coach, and sponsor.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I'll start by saying it doesn't really matter. The important thing is you're doing good work and you're helping someone else. These are just labels. We have a ton of labels. We don't need more labels. But there are nuances that differentiate between them. And just for the sake of education, I will very quickly go through them and explain them so that if you hear it, it's, you can be at that cocktail party, say, oh, I know the things. So a role model is someone you aspire to become, or a trait that you want to learn from them, even if you've never met them. So, for example, I give many keynotes. I do a lot of interviews with extreme high achievers. Who is the best interviewer out there? I like to say it's Oprah Winfrey. I've never met Oprah Winfrey. I'm close, but I've never met Oprah Winfrey. But she is my role model when it comes to interviewing people. A mentor is somebody who's there long term. They are your guide by your side. They see something in you that you don't yet see in yourself. They are the wind beneath your wings. That is that long-term relationship. A coach is more nuanced. They're there usually for a finite period of time to work on very specific skills. They actually ask more questions than they answer. They get you to answer that or to think about things in a new way. So that's role model, mentor, coach, and then sponsor is somebody who talks about you when you're not even in the room. They are able to nominate you for certain jobs, opportunities, choice committees, awards. They can do it online. They can do it behind closed doors. So those are the 4 definitions: role model, mentor, coach, and sponsor. And again, I will say, if you don't remember the difference, don't worry, just do good work.
Let's get it. Let's clear it a little bit more. You said coaches are for a specific purpose, but mentors are not. Is that correct?
So mentors, first of all, mentors, at least in the US, are often not paid. It's a volunteer role, and coaches are paid.
Right. Yeah.
Now, a mentor is more open. It is more with different parts of your career because it is more long-term. Where a coach, for example, before I gave my TED Talk, I hired a coach to help me tell a story, right? The TEDx was over, that relationship finished. When you want to do coaching, when you want to start something different in your career, so I do executive coaching for elite athletes and professional athletes who are thinking about what's next. in their career when they retire from sports. So it's to work through transitions. That is where a coach is very, very helpful.
So coaches are paid, mentors are not. That makes it even more difficult to find the right person because they probably wouldn't be advertising themselves, right? Like coaches. So how do you find them?
Absolutely. Well, I say, and this is why I partnered with Andy Lapata for our new book, Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, because he is the global expert at professional relationships. And at the core of mentorship is that professional relationship. And I like to say, wherever there are people doing great work is where you can potentially find a mentor. You are looking for someone who's either doing something that you wish to emulate or has those ideas that you wish to tackle and think about, somebody who can challenge you in such a way. Wherever you find those people, it could be at work, it could be in professional societies, it could be in a friend group. That's where the potential mentors are. But you have to put yourself in those spaces.
And mentorship is actually very important, but it's not really popular. Even the companies do have some mentorship programs, but not everybody is aware of them. And even if they are, they're probably not making good use of it. So what do you think are the core challenges that mentorship is not as successful as it should be?
And that's why Andy and I wrote this book. We know there's a quarter century of research that shows that people who are mentored out-earn and outperform those who are not. They get promoted more often, they're happier in their jobs, they have lower burnout. The problem is there's several problems. One, people are afraid to approach people and ask for help. They think they're going to be a burden, or they're afraid to be vulnerable. People don't always seek them out. And the organizations that have formal mentoring programs, there's often not as there's either too much structure or not enough structure. So the matches are often made, but they're made based on something completely random. Oh, two people who are from London should be together because, of course, everyone from London's exactly the same. That's how crazy it sounds, right? So they make these matches, but then there's no follow-up. There's no training for the mentors. There's no training for the mentees. So it's just sort of random. There's no accountability. So we need a little bit more education. That's why the book really shows how to be an outstanding mentor, how to be an outstanding mentee. Here are the conversation starters that you need. Here's how to hold somebody accountable. Here's how to put up a mirror to see if they're really doing the best work, that, you know, they're stretching themselves as much as they can. 61% of mentoring relationships happen organically. They're actually not matches that are made. So we need to create these opportunities within organizations for people to meet other people outside the silo of their own work group. And that's where organizations can play a pivotal role.
And that's where is the problem, right? If let's say in a company, so first of all, I would like to say that everybody has some mentors in their life. They might not be in their corporate world, but they do have somebody they look up to and get guidance from. But when it comes to the professional world, and as you mentioned, if somebody is looking for a mentor, most likely they're going to go to their line manager. Right?
Yeah.
And in many cases, I don't know, you can correct me, the line manager becomes the mentor, and I don't know how successful that relationship can be. So maybe
And it's dangerous.
on that. Yeah.
It's actually quite dangerous when your boss becomes your mentor. At the beginning, it sounds great. But what happens if you do so well that two things happen? One, either your boss gets jealous of your success, and that can happen. Or if you do so well, you get a promotion or you leave the organization. Now, all of a sudden, there's an empty role that the boss needs to fill. And until that role gets filled, who needs to do it? Likely your boss. So by you leaving, you're actually creating more work for your boss. So it's a double-edged sword to ask your boss to be your mentor. And then we can get into a whole conversation about should you ask someone to be your mentor. But that's why it's quite dangerous. And there's actually, for those who don't have the book yet, there's 2 articles that I've written in Forbes about this very topic.
What is the stat about it? Are the most mentors that people have, are they their bosses or not?
No.
No.
And we actually, Andy and I advocate for what's called a mentoring team. So you should not have just one person who is your mentor, because what happens if that person's sick or too busy, or they leave an organization or don't have the expertise that you need? Instead, we advocate for a mentoring team from people from within and outside your organization and industry, and at different levels, the senior people, peer mentors, reverse mentors who are junior to you. This way, you can really have something that's robust in a 360 mentoring view. And if one person's not available or not an expert, then by all means, you have other people that you can rely on. And I think that provides a very good safety net.
This is interesting. You mentioned about peer and reverse mentoring, i.e. somebody who's junior to you could be your mentor. First of all, how popular or accepted this is? Have you seen many examples where juniors are mentoring seniors, and how does it go?
It's actually becoming more and more popular now to have reverse mentors. It was actually started by Jack Welch at IBM when he first noticed that the internet was coming out and the senior executives had no idea how to work with it. But the new junior people who were coming in were all over it. They loved it. So he told his senior executives, you need to talk to these youngins and learn everything that you can. And that was really sort of the unofficial birth of reverse mentoring. I think it's very popular right now. I think people don't always call these people their mentors, and that's okay. As I said, we have enough labels in our lives. But if they're learning from somebody who's junior to them, then it's critical and it's important. And then they're their mentor. And that's great.
I'm curious, what do they call them? Because I've never seen a junior mentoring a senior.
Yes. So the official term now is called reverse mentoring or junior mentors, and either one works.
Okay, good.
And I'll give you an example actually of
please.
when that happened to me personally. The best mentoring relationships are reciprocal, where you're both learning from each other.
Mhm.
And I had a student that I was working with. To make a very long story short, we worked, she had found some statistics. I said that would be a great idea for a paper or an article. I'm an academic, so we write a lot of articles. She said, I've never written one before. I said, I have, let's work together. Okay. We worked together, we published. And my rule is if you write the first draft, you're the first author. So she became the first author in a major publication. After the article came out, I said to her, we need to do a video abstract and we need to do a visual abstract. So the video abstract was 60 seconds. We talked about the cusp of the article. And something happened when we did that video abstract. She put it at 1.5 speed. And I said to her, I listened back. I said, we sound high. We can't have it like this. She said, no. This is how people listen now to videos.
Yeah.
Now, remember, I grew up at a time we didn't have videos in the classroom. We didn't learn from YouTube. So the idea of listening at 1.5 times speed was completely foreign to me. Well, this still didn't sound right. So I asked a bunch of people and they said, yeah, of course you listen at 1.5 speed. So, okay, there I learned something new. Then the second thing happened, we had to do a visual abstract where basically you take the article and it's in 3 columns about what the main points are. And she chose the colors for it. And I said, well, how did you choose these colors? She said, well, most people are colorblind to these colors, whatever they were. So I made sure not to include those colors in our visual abstract. That would not have occurred to me because that's not something that I work with regularly. And again, that is now something that I learned from her. If we're going to be inclusive, we have to start thinking about how do we represent our data in a way that everyone can actually see it and work with it.
This is
And there
really
you go.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I do, when I get my videos like this interview, when it'll be edited, it will be made at least 10% faster.
Yeah.
Because
See?
I myself listen to all the YouTube videos as 2x because 2x is maximum on YouTube. But if I'm listening to an audiobook, I even go 2.5x depending on the speed of the author. And your brain is very smart. The first time you will listen to 3x, you'll be like, oh, there, what's going on? You wouldn't make out anything. But then if you keep trying it, it wouldn't take more than 3 or 4 sessions of listening that you will be acclimatized to it and you'll be like perfectly fine listening to every single word they're saying.
See?
And your brain does process it. That's, yeah, interesting. Right. So there are 2 things here. One is about the new tech, etc. And let's say for a senior to junior, now somebody who is a Generation X person, gray-haired, and then you have a Gen Z, right? A very young person born in 95, 96, or maybe 2000, I don't know, very junior. There is definitely going to be a generation gap, of course. The way they take things, the way they process them, the way they produce outputs, everything is different. And if that person becomes a mentor to this new generation chap, how do you advise addressing that gap?
I think it's about learning from each other. Here's the idea. And how are the different ways that we can take this to the next level? And I'll give you another example. There's somebody who has mentored me with my research and has been exceptional. And it turns out that he has won every prestigious award in his field. And he knows his field, which is the sciences, very, very well. He wrote an autobiography. And he doesn't know how to market his book outside of the sciences. He doesn't know how to market a book at all. He knows how to do basic science research. And he reached out to me, and I'm a generation younger than him. And he said, your book, he's talking about my previous book, became a bestseller. how do you do that? And I taught him how it is that you start getting the word out there about your book. It was a completely foreign concept to him, totally foreign concept. But here's the thing, he was open to asking and open to being vulnerable. And all high achievers, and this is why Andy and I worked so well together, surround themselves with mentors, and they are curious and they ask questions and they're not afraid to be vulnerable. And they will learn from anyone around them who has the expertise and the information that they need. It could be somebody senior to them, at their level, or junior to them.
You mentioned one other thing called the perspective blindness in the book. And in this particular scenario, when somebody is so senior that they probably, or let's say the other way around, somebody who's born in year 2000, they just can't understand what their parents talking about. And if this mentor is of their parents' age, then there would be a massive amount of perspective blindness, right? How are we addressing that?
I think just being open about it. I don't know what I don't know, right? And seeing who might have greater expertise or greater knowledge or greater curiosity about it and letting them lead the way. That is what's so important. And that's how mentors and mentees can learn from each other. So critical.
Right. So I've read it in the book, and there are two places that you talked about this very thing, leading them to find answers. Now, as a mentor, is it my role to find answers for you and maybe convince you for that answer, or to ask you questions so that you find your own answers?
Ideally, you should be finding your own answer. If the mentors have all the answers for you, they're just a Google search.
Right.
They're there to guide you. They're not there to give you the answers, because if I'm the mentor and you're the mentee, what's right for me may not be right for you. But it's my job as a mentor to show you the different perspectives that are out there so that you can make an informed decision.
In order to find the right mentor for you, like let's say you join a company, somebody who's new, right? So they join a company, and in that company they have some loosely announced mentor-mentee program, and they say, oh, if you're looking for a mentor, go for it, register here. How do people go about it? Like, mentor me for what, right? Generally in the companies, it is okay, you just want to be mentee, register, send your email, and then we'll know the list of mentors and mentees, and like, on what? What is the expertise of these mentors? What are these mentees are needing? What are their objectives? How is it? How mature this setup is really, and what do we need to do in order for it to really work and benefit everybody?
It's far from great, but it is a starting point, and that's what's so important. It's often random, right? Oh, you're both in accounting, therefore you would be a good match. But it's really so much more than that, because the mentee has to come in with, here are my goals, here are my plans, what am I missing? They already need to come in with some sort of context. Now, here's the thing with these matchings. It's a starting point. It doesn't have to be the end point. So while this mentoring pairing might be fantastic, but it's going to be fantastic if the mentee comes in ready and prepared and says, this is what I need help with, this is what I've done so far. But it also might not be great. The match might not be right. So there needs to be an exit ramp. Now, where does the matching actually work well? Remember, I said it's a starting point. There are certain groups that are under-mentored. They don't have the ability to reach out to people with certain levels of expertise for whatever reasons that there are, right? It's access, it's privilege, it's all those reasons. These in particular are very often the underrepresented groups. By having formal matches, it gives them that starting point. Here's your mentor. Here's your first mentor. Let's start with this and continue and build on it and move forward. So it gives them that opportunity and that access that is often so desperately needed.
I think you have that in the book also, to know your why. Why are you going to be mentor? Need a mentor, right? What are your objectives? Start with why, Simon Sinek, right?
That's right.
Okay, fine. Let's say I've found a mentor, and let's talk from mentor's point of view now. Okay, I can guide, I can coach some people who have not, who don't have the experience in the things that I do have, but I have a massive amount of imposter syndrome, right? You've touched about it in the book also, and I really want to scratch your head on how do people deal with imposter syndrome, because that's one of the personal challenge I have. So yes, anything that you can share on that.
Sure. Now, are you saying if the mentor has imposter syndrome,
yes,
or the mentee has imposter syndrome?
Mentor.
Okay. This very, very often happens because 70% of people in the world have imposter syndrome. Everyone from a Supreme Court justice to an Oscar-winning actor to the former First Lady of the United States. So imposter syndrome is quite prevalent. I actually look at imposter syndrome differently than most. Most people look at it as there's this overwhelm. I'm going to be considered as a fake. This was just luck. I should not have really gotten this. So it becomes this trigger for stress and anxiety. I actually think your brain is playing tricks on you. You've achieved something you have never achieved before, and your brain is confused and doesn't know if it actually should be a trigger for stress. I actually think it is a marker for success. You are just not used to this new achievement. That's what it's all about. The committee did not make a mistake in accepting you. The committee did not make a mistake in giving you the award. Somebody sees something in you, and that's why you are their mentor. You have that perspective. It is not a mistake. You don't need to have all of the answers. But the best mentors will say, I don't know, but I know who to ask. I know where to look it up, right? Nobody here is a divine spirit with all of the answers, but we are there to listen. We are there to learn. We are there to support. Kathy Cram says there are two jobs of a mentor. One is the career mentorship, to help you with the career guidance. And the other is the psychosocial support, to be the cheerleader, to give you that perspective when you're down, see that 60,000-foot view when you are just so waddled inside the jar that you can't read the label. It is not imposter syndrome. It is a mentee sees something in you where you can help them in something they don't know how to do. Stand up straight and do what you know how to do best.
And even though you are an expert in something, and if there is something that you don't know, have the courage to say that I don't know.
Exactly. I definitely don't have all the answers.
No, but sometimes it gets really tricky on an aspect which you say that I am the authority in this area. I know almost everything, but there are still a few things that people probably wouldn't know. And
I don't know. And that's one of the reasons I collaborate a lot, because I don't have all of the answers, because I am looking for a new perspective. And I think collaboration is a great way to overcome imposter syndrome. There's somebody who can have a strength to your challenge. And that's another way to do it, is a dyad mentoring, where two people mentor one person. And that's also the benefit of a mentoring team. So if it's not my strength, I can say, go speak to so-and-so, who is definitely knows more than I do on this. I know enough to be dangerous, but this person really knows a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So we did speak about why the mentorship program don't work, but let's talk about why the relationship itself may not work between a particular mentor and a particular mentee. I don't know what are the stats, but let's say 100 people start being mentees.
Yeah.
How many of them are still after a year having the relation with the same mentor? I don't know. Is there any stat you could share?
I don't know if there's stats on how many stay in that particular relationship, but we do know that those who stick with mentoring in some sort, it doesn't have to be with the same mentor, and I'll get to that in a minute, they do better in their job and their career. Now, why am I saying it doesn't have to be the same mentor? Because you had a mentor when you had a particular goal. If you've achieved that goal, you now have a new goal. Is that mentor still the same person who can help you achieve that goal? Maybe, maybe not. Being a mentor is not a life sentence, right? Who you are at 40 is not who you are at 20. You have different goals that you want, and the people who can help you get to those new goals very often are not the same. So we can refresh our mentors. We don't throw out the old ones. They're still in our orbit. We just don't reach out to them for the same things.
One of the filter criteria to find your mentee or mentor is to align your values and find out the values of the person you're going to get into relationship with. How easy it is, because not many people really can tell you what their values are. I mean, they probably know they have some vague idea, but I mean, if you ask 10 people, what are your company corporate values? I would be really surprised if everybody will tell you the answer, right? Even though they probably see it on the reception every single day. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And many employees are not really aligned with the values of their companies. That's also another true stat. Now, in this case, how will you make sure that your values are aligned with theirs? And which is a kind of prerequisite to have a successful mentor-mentee relationship, right?
Yeah. And, since we can't identify often our own values, how do other people identify theirs? And how do we make sure that there's an overlap? This is where my friend Ajay had a brilliant way of figuring it out, because most of us will say honesty and hard work, and right, most of us will say those exact same values. And she had a brilliant way of putting it. She said, who are your heroes? And I would list them. And she said, well, what do you love about them? And I would list it. And she said, look within yourself. You just identified who you are and what you stand for. And I was like, whoa, that's incredible. Because that was very true. And I think when you see that and you start to hang around with other people, remember I said 61% of mentoring relationships happen organically, because we want to be able to connect with people, and seeing that overlap in what I call that Venn diagram. It's because we start seeing those shared values, even if we haven't been able to put a label on it, right? We see who we connect with. There's something that aligns, and that's who we need to start spending more time with and seeing what it is that we like about each other and each other's work.
Tell me more about, I mean, you've mentioned a lot about this particular bit in the book, and you talk about the style of knowing, like knowers, you know, like instrumental knowers or socialized knowers. There are a couple of more types of
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the work of actually my former professor from my doctoral program, Dr. Ellie Drago Severson. It's basic adult development, and she talks about the social knower, the instrumental learner, the social knower, and the transformative learner. It's very academic, but to crystallize it, it's some people need to be told what to do. Some people need to just share what they're doing, but they're always looking for your acceptance and your approval. Other people are looking for just acknowledgement. Here are the different things I've considered. Here's what I've already done. I just want to keep you in the loop. And then there's the ones who are really forward thinking about the creating the community and doing something bigger than themselves. The people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King, those kinds of people. That's a very small percentage of the population. So knowing how to interact with people, is this somebody who's very rule-based, or is this somebody who wants to hear about the different options are available? That's very helpful in the mentoring relationship.
And let's say you found a mentor, you're going through it, they are advising you something, and you are not either working on it or you just discarding their advice.
Yeah.
And your mentor, I don't know, how will they take it? So how have you come across those kind of scenarios, and has it broken the relationship or?
No, it's happened to me personally.
Okay. Let's learn about it.
So, I think you don't have to accept all of the advice of another person, but you do need to know how to back it up. Because if you're not accepting it and you don't say anything, you come off as lazy. You come off as aloof. But if you say, I thought about what you said, I don't think it was the right solution for this challenge because of A, B, C, or I heard what you suggested. I liked the piece about X and I implemented it. The piece about Y I didn't think was the right fit. I changed it a little bit based on whatever, and this is how I did it. Now it sounds like you've listened, you've thought about it, and you didn't reject it. You said this would work, this wouldn't work, because it shows that you put a lot of thought into it. And if you can back that up, it's fine. Now, remember I told you I went back to school much later in life, and I have a very long commute to work. And every day on my commute to work, I would talk with my thesis advisor, the incredible Dr. Marie Volpe. And she would ask me what I read or wrote the night before, the feedback she gave, what I thought of it. And if I did not agree with the points she made, she said, tell me more. Tell me why. And if I could back it up, she said, fine. She said, write it your way. Looks like you thought this through. Mine was just another idea. It's not the only idea. But that idea was a launching pad for my idea that came after. But if she would not have given me her idea, I probably would not have come up with my own.
I think then the key is communication here.
Yes, right? So critical.
Yeah. So even if you don't follow what advice has been given, but if you've been open about it, then I think there is no problem. But it's Absolutely. Only when you've been told to do something and you do something the other way, and then you don't even discuss that, then
yeah. That's when problems occur.
Good. Right. So what do you recommend to create a culture of mentorship in companies? as we previously spoke about, like it's there, but it's not there, right?
Yes, it needs to be inculcated into the culture. It needs to be talked about. The pairings, the matches, the whatever it is needs to be discussed, needs to be shown. The value of it needs to be shown. And I think once we start talking about it more openly and showing the great work that mentorship can do, because remember, a lot of people have mentors, they just don't realize it. They don't realize that they have their go-to person that they ask for mentorship. So once we start talking about it more openly, it's not a shame, it's a badge of honor. You know, one of the people who we talk about in our book is Dr. Bob Lefkowitz. He won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2012. Now, the Nobel Prize in the sciences are often shared. It doesn't usually go to one person, like in literature. And when he got that early morning phone call at 4 o'clock in the morning, he asked the Nobel Committee, well, who else got it? And they told him. And it turns out that his co-recipient was his former mentee. And I said, Dr. Lefkowitz, is that strange that you win the biggest award of your life, of your career, and it's shared with somebody who's a generation younger than you, who was your mentee? He said, strange, weird. He said, that's a badge of honor. I measure my success by my mentee's success. We need more stories like that to be shared in the workplace.
So I'm glad you touched upon the Nobel Prize winner story. You have done much more research on these kind of people, like CEOs, Olympic champions, and Nobel laureates. What is your, let's say, if you have to give some advice to what did you learn from these people, what could it be?
I think the way this book came out was when I'm a social scientist, and when I interviewed all these people and I realized they all had a team of mentors around them. The Nobel Prize winners, the NBA champions, the Olympic champions, if they have it, why do the rest of us mere mortals think we're better than that and we don't need it? And that's when I really doubled down on it. Now, I was always curious about mentorship. I even wrote about it in the essay when I applied to doctoral programs. But now it became less of a nice to have idea and more of a must have idea. And now I'm screaming it from the rooftops. Everyone should have a mentor and be a mentor.
Absolutely. And everyone probably should read the book that Ruth and Andy have written, the one that you can see behind her, Financial Times Guide for Mentoring. And I can also see another book, The Success Factor, behind Ruth. So I would like to ask you how to write a lot of books and make them bestsellers.
First of all, find a topic that you absolutely love and can't stop thinking about, and have it marinate in your brain for a long time, because once you start to writing, the words will just spill out. And that's what I've done. I have a list on my phone of the next 7 books that I want to write. So I think they'll definitely be coming. Hopefully people on Amazon will follow my author so they'll know when new books are coming out. But writing Financial Times Guide to Mentoring with Andy Lapata was the most incredible collaboration, because we had never met in person. We had not met in person until November 2023, which was after we submitted and signed off on the manuscript.
Wow.
And I had no idea how tall he was. I had no idea anything. And we wrote a whole book together, and we are in different time zones and 2 different continents. But learning to collaborate with someone is a skill, because we quickly figured out what each other's strengths and challenges were. And we learned from each other without stepping on each other. So I'm the academic. I know how to do those lit reviews and get all those statistics in, and Andy let me do that. And Andy, I say, is the expert for anything with a power button. So he was able to create the website and the assessment that we were able to build. And most importantly, we were both on the same page regarding mentoring. So we had our weekly meetings. We would talk through every chapter. We had a great writing, a very aligned writing style, which was great. So I'm excited. I'm excited about the collaboration. I'm excited for everyone to read Financial Times Guide to Mentoring.
Good. I met Andy very recently, around a couple of months ago, I think. And we will have Andy also on the show in, I think, in a couple of weeks' time.
All right.
So yeah, we'll be talking a lot to him also. Right. So all the best for the book. And there's one question that I ask every single guest, and I make them think. And my question is, what, according to you, are the top 3 skills that should be taught to children in order to be successful and happy, but schools are not teaching?
Ooh. Okay. Negotiation, financial literacy, and learning from people who are different than you.
Why are they important?
Negotiation is a critical life skill
Mhm.
because we're always negotiating. Financial literacy, because I am surprised at how many people don't even know how to balance their checking account
Yeah.
and manage their credit card. And learning from people who are different than you, I think we could solve many problems in the world if we learned how to listen to each other, because we can't learn about our differences until we understand how we're first alike.
Yeah, I love the third one. I mean, I loved all three. But the third one is unique because nobody has said it before in negotiation. A lot of people have mentioned this because I've got over 100 answers to this question.
Oh, wow.
Kind of reading list, let's see which one comes out on the top. Great. So you have 7 more books coming, as I hear, right?
I hope there's a list on my phone of the books I'd like to write. We'll see when I get tired of them. For now, I still love writing.
Oh, that actually brings us to the end of this interview. But I really enjoyed talking to you. Now there are a lot of things that we have not spoken, which is in the book. If you guys get a chance to have a look at it, it's got templates. It tells you what should be your objectives, how you should write them down, how should you track your relationship with your mentor and with your mentee, and how you should measure your success. How can you say that your relationship with your mentor was success? All those kind of tools are available in the book. Do check it out. It looks like the one that you see behind Ruth right now. Yeah, and stay here for another interview with Andy and many more such authors. And if you have not yet done so, then this is the time to hit that subscribe button so that you get notifications for all my future interviews. Until then, you take care and keep learning. And thank you very much, Ruth, for your time and insight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.